Hello everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of the Son of Neptune rewrite, part of my Rewriting Heroes of Olympus series. Now, you may have seen part 1, if not I will cut it up here, where I basically just kind of rewrite the basics of the actual story. Instead of changing everything, it's just changing some parts. But in part 2, I'm doing a total overhaul rewrite for this book. So, for part 2, Son of Neptune has become Heroes of Olympus, Children of Pluto. So let's just dive in. Now, what I've been talking about since doing The Lost Hero is that basically my whole goal is to remove Percy and Annabeth entirely from the Seven, because they've had their whole plot, they've had their story, make them mentors, make them older, and, just don't have them be prominent characters, have them appear here and there, but actually have the time to focus on these new characters instead of, having people not care that much about these new characters because the old ones that we know more are there as well. So, to replace Percy and Annabeth, we have Nico D'Angelo as the swap for Camp Half-Blood to Camp Jupiter, and Will Solace, because they need a medical person. They need someone with medical knowledge on this quest. It's a dangerous quest. They need someone who can heal. And also it helps the Solangelo situation. So that's why it becomes Children of Pluto, because, Nico and Hazel. Nico is, he's the son of Hades, but at this point he won't have memories. He'll only know the Roman stuff. And obviously Hazel as well. And their stories are going to be a lot more interconnected. But as I do with my different parts, I'm going to be breaking down things into 3 sections. Well, technically 2, and it's just instead of talking about characters, because I kind of did all of that in the first part, and a lot of that is going to carry over to this one, I am actually mainly going to be talking about narrative, so I guess it's only kind of one part. It doesn't matter, we'll just get into it, and you'll see what I mean. So what I'm having as a setup, so obviously what we know in Son of Neptune with how Hazel comes back is that Nico went to the underworld, found her, and brought her back to the living. Now, I basically kind of still want that to happen, but I don't want Nico to know. I want this to be the point when Nico has lost his memories, or at least part of them. I don't want him to lose everything, but I want him to lose bits and pieces. And it is whilst in the underworld that this happens, and then he finds Hazel, and they start making their way out of the underworld because they know that they probably shouldn't be down there. And Hazel kind of goes with it because she doesn't want to be dead. And they make their way out. And one of the exits for the underworld is going to be near the Roman camp, which is then when they find monsters, which leads them running towards the camp. And all of this is happening kind of pre-book. Now, the reason why I still want this to happen, but also to have it happen pre-book, is because if he's already lost his memories at this point in time and he's finding Hazel, we're going to be seeing a Nico character interacting with Hazel without thinking of her as, the backup sister, because he's lost his memories. He won't know Bianca's dead, maybe doesn't even know Bianca in general. Although I'm kind of down with him knowing Bianca still, but not knowing she's dead, because, we need the heart-wrenching stuff at the end of things when memories start coming back. But I want the interactions between Hazel and Nico to be actual sibling dynamics, instead of Nico kind of not being the best brother, because he calls her Bianca at certain points. He doesn't fully treat her like a sibling. Hazel, on the other hand, fully treats him like a sibling. So I'd like that dynamic to be more equal, which would happen if he's already lost his memories when he then finds Hazel. But there's also another possibility for pre-book stuff, is that Nico doesn't help Hazel get out of the underworld. It's actually her herself who gets herself out of the underworld. Because, the doors of death are open. She could find a way out. She's conscious in the underworld. She's conscious in her afterlife. So it's possible she could just slip out completely by accident. Without kind of really thinking about it, she just finds a way out. Like, something's calling to her, she finds a way out, and she then stumbles on to finding Nico on his way to Camp Jupiter, being chased by monsters, and the two of them bond together. They, survive the monster chasing thing, make it to Camp Jupiter, and things kind of progress from there. So it could be either or, that he's in the underworld when memories are taken, he finds Hazel and they get their way out, or, and admittedly I do prefer the second version, Hazel finds her own way out. Because firstly, it gives her a lot more agency as a character in general, because she's the one doing it for herself, she's not relying on someone else. And also it would give hints to the Doors of Death situation. She's a spirit who slipped out of the Doors of Death. So it would make the possibility of, Thanatos in this story sending her back because she is someone who slipped through. But yeah, I think I'm going to go with that second version. There are the two versions, but I reject the first one now. Hazel gets herself out and then she stumbles into Nico and they make their way together to Camp Jupiter. And actually have it be that Frank is already there. He's the one who meets them on their way into Camp Jupiter, helps them through, protects them from the monsters, helps get them to safety. And because he's, in propatito, or I can't say that word, he connects with them because they're both new as well. And again, just what I was saying before, Hazel is going to be 14, 15 in this. She's going to be older, so she's closer in age to Frank, so because she's meant to be anyway. But yes, that is going to be the starting change, is that Hazel's going to bump into Nico on his way to the monsters. Frank helps save them, they get into Camp Jupiter, and things progress similarly to how it did with Percy, in that Nico shows intense level of power, and they figure out that he's a son of Pluto very quickly because, he's raising skeletons and stuff to fight against the monsters that are following them, which freaks people out a lot. I'd probably have the Juno thing still, because Juno, her whole thing is that she's doing this on purpose, so she kind of has to be there. And yeah, just have Nico show off his power, even though he doesn't remember who he is fully. It also removes the random, confrontation with Raina, because she won't know Nico, so there won't be that really weird dynamic going on there. And yeah, so it just simplifies it a little bit more. And also, we have Nico as the main character, and Hazel being introduced quicker as well, with a connection to Nico, or just we get hints of her background at this point in time, because she just suddenly appears, because obviously it's all going to be Nico's POV at the start. She just suddenly appears, seemingly from nowhere. Nico says something like he could sense death on her, and it was something he figured out that he could do, but he didn't really understand because she looked alive, she looked human. So he's kind of picking things up as they go along. I think it'd just be really interesting for that dynamic to kind of start almost from the get-go. And then, they help rescue the old lady. Frank helps rescue them. They get to Camp Jupiter. They're identified as children of Pluto, which, they also don't particularly respect Pluto as much as they don't respect Neptune either, because Pluto, Hades, just generally not respected gods. And yeah, that's basically kind of the opening. So that's the initial big changes, is Nico is the main, Hazel is introduced sooner and in connection with Nico. So she's not been at Camp Jupiter that whole time. And so we're kind of getting to know her on a similar level that we are, in a sense, re-getting to know Nico. But also that initial bond, because I'll find out that they're both children of Pluto around the same time. And yeah, it'll be pretty cool. They'll bond. Nico will be happy again because he's got a sister, and he'll just generally be happy because all that grief is wiped. But going into the main story changes. So like I just said, Nico is being chased by monsters. He finds Hazel. Something's a bit off about her, but she's in danger too. So they band together. They run towards Camp Jupiter. Frank helps save them. They also find Juno. Juno's like, hey, this is a new champion. There's some stuff going on. This is the situation, just deal with it. Romans are, of course, going to continue to be a little bit suspect of Nico and Hazel in turn as well, because children of Pluto came out of nowhere, insane power, came with a goddess. I mean, it's going to be complicated for them. But Frank is going to connect with them because, he's still on probation, he's a bit of an outcast. And he helped rescue them, so they'll kind of get on with him a bit as well. They'll also both be grateful that someone isn't treating them like they're I don't even know the word that I want to use. He's not treating them like there's something wrong with them. He's just treating them like general people. He's got no issue with their godly parent, because why would he? He doesn't even know who his godly parent is, so how could he judge them? And also they did some amazing things with their abilities, and, you know, got a goddess across a river. That's impressive to him, so he would have no issue with, you know, showing them around and all that sort of stuff. And basically, kind of from there, everything is going to flow pretty similar to the storyline of what I brought up in part 1. That they're going to have the war games. One of the camp members is going to be stabbed and come back to life to show that the doors of death have been opened. We'll also, because of what I mentioned before, have Hazel be a little bit apprehensive and anxious to know these things and wonder if she's going to be caught, which Nico catches onto because he senses death with her. We'll also have them then going on the quest, and Frank being this leader of the quest, because in comparison to the two of them, he technically has more knowledge of what's going on because he's been at camp a little bit longer, and of course he is the son of a war god. They'll go on the quest. We're not going to have the Phineas thing. Ella's going to be with the Amazons. And the reason why we're not going to have the Phineas storyline is because, well, there's a way to get the information that we get from Phineas elsewhere. Possibly during Hazel's blackouts and flashbacks and stuff. I don't think there's anything else. It just kind of, it all progresses as it would in the story that we currently have. Just basically all the stuff I brought up in part 1. Frank's storyline is going to be a lot different. He's going to have, you know, not the mix of traits that he previously had. It's going to be that he has low confidence. He is, you know, disappointed that he is the son of a war god because war is what killed his mum, blah, 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 blah. Hazel was going to be having these blackouts. She's going to be having this anxiety that would be even more heightened about going back to the underworld because she escaped from the underworld and, like, knowingly did so. Like, she did so without help. So she's more concerned that she will be taken back once they free Death. And then Nico slowly regaining his memories over time, and that's like those small spots of grief returning of him remembering certain things, and that just hitting hard. So the kid that we're seeing at the start being sort of like not happy-go-lucky because, like, he's just being chased by monsters and terrible stuff is happening, but someone who's a lot more relaxed and someone who's experiencing more good things in his life. Like, he's made 2 friends who don't think of him as this weird goth kid sort of thing that happens in the series, unfortunately. But, you know, they like him for him. And then as he's slowly remembering the terrible stuff that happened in his past, the gloom slowly starts to take over a little bit more. But because Frank and Hazel have gotten to know him as this other part without this grief, they don't let him fall into that grief as much as he would have if he hadn't got this support system. So he doesn't fall back to that, you know, sad boy energy thing that he always has, because he has people there to support him now. I will still have the giant die in Alaska because, you know, that's part of the whole thing. If he's taken out of Alaska, he'll die. And so I'm not opposed to him evaporating and actually properly disintegrating, dying in Alaska, because that makes sense. I only have a problem with it with the other books where it makes no sense. Also, have not polyboats, the giant at the end of this book, so not the one in Alaska, the one that gets to Camp Jupiter, that one doesn't die. That one suddenly disappears into the earth. So Alaska one, dead. Camp Jupiter one disappears because they're going to Mount Olympus for the final battle. The only difference with the Alaska one is that what I don't want to happen is that they use the flying horse, well, the fast horse. What? No, he doesn't fly, he just glides. They don't use Arion the fast horse to get him across the border. They use their wits and tricks to get him across the border. Because, you know, the easy trick of the horse thing, I think, just made it a bit too easy for them to have defeated this guy. But that's the only small change. The other bit also is the civil war element between the two camps needs to be done slightly better, and also have no American Civil War relevance or relation at all. And have it be that Marcus, who is the ghost, you know, who went to Alaska to retrieve their lost goods, basically saying, like, when they see him again, that the reason why they lost is because they were already weakened, because a small battle broke out with the Greeks, because they came across each other, because of past problems, they just automatically fought. And when that battle ended and they went their own ways, they were already weakened. So when it came to seeing the giant and, the other stuff there, they were easily defeated. And so this anger that he has towards the Greeks is then increased and directed specifically at Nico, because obviously he is Greek, and they know this now because it's been pointed out at many levels. So it kind of jumps up like the conflict is always there between the Greeks and Romans, but don't have it be connected to the American Civil War. Just have it be that they just don't get on, because the Greeks and Romans in general didn't get on in ancient times. So you don't need to tie it to an American Civil War. Don't do that. But what will be interesting about this is because all the stuff that's going on in this story and the journey and the characters and their growth will kind of have the three of them build together this bond, because these three will not have known each other at all prior to this book, which will be slightly different with The Lost Hero, where Piper and Leo did actually know each other. They just had fake memories of Jason, but obviously I changed that in my version. So Piper and Leo did know each other before that. This will be one where no one knows anyone, and yet they've worked together on this journey because they knew they had to. They all have different skills that they've been able to bring together, and it's led to teamwork, to understanding, to camaraderie, that when they defeated the giant in Alaska and made it back to Camp Jupiter to help save the day, they're basically a well-oiled machine. I said that word really weird. Well-oiled machine at this point, because, they've been working together. They're three members of a group who don't really have big ego situations. They're all kind of like, I don't want to say soft-hearted, but also kind of soft-hearted. They're good, kind people. The only problems that would occur between them wouldn't be related to ego. It'd be related to fear. And I think that'd be a really interesting dynamic to introduce, is that their problems didn't fall back onto inner conflicts between them, but conflicts with themselves as individuals, not with each other. And each of them instead helping the other come to terms and overcome those problems to progress forward. Nico and Hazel help Frank realise that he is skilled as a leader. And no, it doesn't necessarily have to be related to his dad or his mum. It could be connected to both. It could be connected to him, because Frank in general is just someone who recognises other people's skills and abilities. He recognised what Nico could bring to the table on the first day he met him and used it in the war games. And Hazel is the sort of person who feels so much and has experienced so much, and yet has not allowed that to affect her way of thinking of others and working with others. And even her fear of death didn't stop, dying again technically, didn't stop her from fighting to free death, even though she knew it could lead to her going back to the underworld again. And Nico, even as his traumatic memories start coming back, because he's made friends with these two people, he's found a new sister, he's found a friend. And obviously remembering Will in the background as well, that there are other people who care about him. He doesn't let the angst, so to speak, take over him. He continues to push forward to help save his friends and his family and help save the world, because he knows there are people in this world that care about him, and he cares about them too. And he wants to make sure that they're safe. So it's these three kind-hearted people growing to become more confident, basically, and believe in themselves, helping to save the day. I mean, that's amazing. Like, I want this. And so when they get back to camp and, they help stop the giant from destroying the camp, the Amazons come because Hazel helped convince them to come see Raina, I've forgotten the sister's name. The leader of the Amazons is Raina's sister, and they came to help. And, Frank is offered the position of praetor and takes it. Nico and Hazel are praised as heroes and receive the credit that they deserve. And the three of them have become true friends, and stuff is going on between Frank and Hazel. There's some feelings of a sort, because I still like Fraser. And yeah, all three of them are recognised for their talents and skills. And it's amazing. They sit down to dinner, and then, of course, Leo's message comes in, and Nico doesn't actually know who this guy is, but they're talking about Camp Half-Blood, and he knows Camp Half-Blood. He knows that the guy he's feeling something for and his friends are at Camp Half-Blood, and they're coming to him. So they got to be ready, and he's ready to move to the next step and heal from everything he went through with his two new found friends and family. Found family trope! I need the found family trope to actually work in Heroes of Olympus, and this is the way to do it, people. This is the way to do it. And that's why the main themes and focuses of this book are going to be the bond between Hazel and Nico, Hazel and Frank's friendship and budding romance, and again, making her older than what she is in the books currently, because again, Rick messed up her age. Nico coming to terms with his trauma from the past and working to overcome it and have him stop being the sad emo boy. We don't need... He's still currently the sad emo boy in Trials of Apollo. We got to say, I'm hoping in The Sun and the Star he stops being the sad emo boy. And then the three of them together working as a group and overcoming their own internal struggles through the help and support of the others. Because the found family trope is going to be strong. And I know this video is a lot shorter than the other ones, but honestly it's because I talked about a lot of it in the previous video about what I would change plot wise, and also Son of Neptune doesn't actually need that much changing. The story direction as it is currently works, and even with Nico it would work a lot more as well. Well, it would still work, I mean. It's just changing a few things and focusing on different parts. Focus on the characters, not the quest as much. The characters are the central focus for this story. It is their actions, it is their problems, their struggles that should be pushing the journey forward, because it's almost intrinsically tied, really. If Frank doesn't gain confidence as a leader, they'll struggle to, find any success when it gets to Alaska. If Nico doesn't overcome his trauma, he'll never find happiness in the world. If Hazel doesn't confront her own death properly and everything that happened, she'll never get to live. And the three of them together can bring that out in each other. I know I'm slightly repeating myself now, so I'm going to wrap this up because, I want this book in particular to focus on bringing together the found family elements, but also discussing trauma. Because all three of these characters have gone through some serious traumas. They were just never properly addressed in the series, and I think this is something that could be done in this book and carry over with the found family stuff into the next ones, as well as inner conflicts about certain things between the Greeks and Romans. But yeah, that is the rewriting of The Children of Pluto, or The Son of Neptune, Part 2. And I want to know what you guys think. Do you think this would work a lot better if Nico was the main character and, well, one of the main characters, of course, and the storyline focused a little bit more on the characters instead of the quest-based elements? Whatever the case, let me know in the comment section down below. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Oh, and subscribe, please. Thank you.